been together so long we can't pretend. Remember the way we used to move, dance all night like young lovers do. Your heart is changing. Now we don't dance like we used to. Silent disco on the floor, baby. Mr. DJ, he'll get me through. When the beat's gone, you can't save me, baby. Smoke and mirrors, pretty lights. Another runaway city boy getting too high. But boys like you tell pretty lies. The 5 a.m. low in your eyes says your heart is changing. Now we don't dance like we used to. Silent disco on the floor, baby. Mr. DJ, you'll get me through. When the beat's gone, you can't save me.
This is Broad Radio. For you, by you. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Hello and welcome to Broad Radio. I'm Jo Stanley and my co-host today is the delightful, hilarious Kirsty Webeck. So nice to see you, legend.
So good to see you too. Pumped to be here.
Oh, pumped to have you on this World Menopause Day. October 18 is World Menopause Day. So today we will not apologise for forgetting our words or opening a window. We're just going to do it in celebration of World Menopause Day. It's a big show. Today we're going to be learning about the woman life freedom movement in Iran when we're joined by journalist and academic Saba Vasefi. And we're going to be having a much needed laugh with rock cabaret artist Geraldine Quinn, who was an absolute delight. And, you know, she's a ballsy chick and we love that. And if you're following and joining us live on Facebook or YouTube, please do share with your any comments or questions you might have along the way. And we encourage you, as always, to head along and check out our previous episodes on Broad Radio on the Go, which is our podcast you can get anywhere you get your podcasts. Kirsty, it's been a while, but I do, of course, follow you on Twitter, as the rest of the world seems to as well. And I have recently enjoyed shenanigans around the Shush Pierre event, Pierre Gate, whatever you might like to call it.
Pierre Gate, I like it.
So this all came about because someone called Pierre kind of went you.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate in that I got to be a panellist on Will Anderson's show Question Everything recently.
Yes.
Had a lovely time.
It's a great show.
Really great, really fun.
Love it.
I'd never been on a panel show before, so I had a ball and I was so, chuffed to be involved and I had such a lovely time. And then it went to air the next day. And then I received a lengthy email through my website, quite a lengthy email, from a person named Pierre who just wanted to give me some tips and acknowledged that it would be a difficult job to do, to be a comedian on a panellist.
That's nice of him to say that.
It was nice of him. It was, yeah.
I feel like he's winding up to something not so nice.
That's right. When I read that, I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Brace yourself. And then he went on to say that what him and his friends found was that they didn't like that I would giggle in while saying a joke or in advance and or at the end, really.
At all.
And he feels, and his friends also feel, that I would be way funnier if I were deadpan.
So not enjoying yourself at all.
Yes.
Not actually finding any of what you were saying amusing, which, let's just acknowledge that being a comedian, it kind of relies on you finding things funny. That's how you write a joke.
Yeah, I feel like that. Yeah, I feel like you have to have a gauge of what's amusing. So And I also feel like, absolutely, like, deadpan comedy is a thing. But, like, as you'd know, Joe, like, comedy has to come from within. And, I mean, I'm a giggly kind of person, so my comedy's probably going to reflect that. So, so this is what he said. I didn't dignify it with a response. Instead, I did what anyone in my position would do, and I blocked him.
That is the most joyous feeling, isn't it? Block.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not replying to this. Like, you think you'd do it. It was so long as well. Like, Pierre, get a hobby.
Oh, totally. And your mates? Him and his mates have been sitting around talking about this?
Yeah.
I mean, Pierre, what do you do?
Yeah.
I mean, when have you got off the couch and produced anything?
Yeah, and I just don't understand somebody being so upset by somebody having a nice time.
Yes.
Like, I was having a nice time on a panel with my mates on TV, wasn't hurting anybody, delivered some laughs for the public.
Yes.
Everybody behind the scenes was happy with how things had gone. And it's totally fair enough. I'm not everyone's cup of tea, nobody is, but you don't have to tell me. And it's certainly Pierre's perception of me isn't going to shape how I approach the rest of my career. As you can see right now, I've had a few giggles already on camera.
I'm quite enjoying it myself. I mean, it is that the thing about that is, and it's that classic thing of, was it Seinfeld? It was like, do I come down and, you know, heckle? What's the word?
Heckle?
Oh my God!
Heckle.
Well, menopause day, everyone. Do I come down and heckle you at your workplace, right?
That's
so,
right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm interested to know what Pierre does.
Yeah,
you know?
me too, because I'd love to go down there.
Like,
on one
if he
of
was
these
an
days.
accountant, is he just loving numbers sick, right? And just, you know,
Yeah.
really congratulating himself on the sums he's doing.
Yeah, and I'd pop down into the office and be like, Pierre, can you please stop looking so thrilled while you're crunching those numbers?
Yeah, exactly.
If you could do it with like a sterner look on your face, people
Yeah.
would take you more seriously.
Yeah. So he wrote to you, you blocked him.
Just also, he's one particular example, right? His was a particularly lengthy amount of feedback as well, but this is not uncommon for anybody in this kind of industry to receive this feedback. For me personally, I'm not saying it's a complete rule across the board, but for me personally, it's almost exclusively men that reach out with these...
Reach out. That's generous.
Reach out. Dear Pierre, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule
to share such important feedback. I'll take it on board.
So I'm used to this sort of thing, but there was a time early on in my career where maybe I would have replied or written something snarky back or something sarcastic or whatever, but now they don't get the benefit of any more of my time. So I've blocked him. And I've made a joke about it on Twitter, and then I've gotten a T-shirt made. A bit extreme, maybe.
Not at all, because
Look at
of
it.
course everyone who follows you on Twitter are all over Pierre and what an asshole he is, and so Pierre now has become representative of all the people who give unsolicited feedback, right? So
Absolutely.
Shush Pierre is a movement that I'm getting on board. Absolutely.
Yes, yeah. I think anyone that gives unsolicited advice now, we've got free reign to just give them a shush Pierre.
Absolutely. But then someone else out of nowhere starts producing the Shush Pierre T-shirts. I was outraged on your behalf, but then you've given me an update on this today.
Yeah, so I got a Google alert, just saying that my name was popping up on Google a bit, and so I was curious to see whether I'd done something terrible.
Yeah, it's not a good day.
And
you're in news.com having been found in a bush or something.
Yeah, I was like, what have I done now? So I had a look on Google, and the T-shirt was popping up on all of these websites, and I was like, wow, this is bizarre. I mean, it's sort of happened to me on a lesser scale in the past, but then I found out that it's bots online that basically trawl Twitter. And if there's like a TV, not TV, TV as well, why not? If there's a T-shirt mention that they think, might be cool, or you post something T-shirt related and people go, oh, I'd love to have that, then they pick up on all of that and they immediately just pop them onto a T-shirt. Like, it's all automated. And so now the Shush Pierre T-shirt is on at last count, it was like 20 websites that you could get.
Wow.
And the cool thing about it, though, is that it credits me. And I'm so used to people stealing my jokes and things and not crediting me, and them turning up like in the media or like wherever it is, or in, you know, somebody else's set, that I was actually quite moved that these sites say Kirsty Webeck Shush Pierre t-shirt.
But there's a whole bunch of people out there. Well, firstly, you can't be upset at a bot, I suppose. They're just doing what bots do.
Yes, bots are going to bot.
But now there's something to buy all the Pierres in your life for Christmas.
Yeah. Well, now I'm going to befriend some Pierres.
Just Pierres who are going, well, who the hell is Kirsty Webeck and why is she making a t-shirt about me? Oh, I love it. I love the internet world.
It's so good.
It's so random.
Yeah, I love people having 24-hour-a-day, 7-day access to me as well. Amazing.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sensing some sarcasm. Hence block. Well, it's great to have you back.
Pleasure to be here.
To have access to you today.
Yeah.
Right. Let's get to our first guest. In recent weeks, we here at Broad Radio have responded to the call from those in Iran to keep talking about Iran. I know that their internet has been shut down, so very important that we continue to talk about the movement over there, the Woman Life Freedom movement that's happening. And it's not just to support our sisters over there, but it's also to pressure our government to do what they can. So today we are joined by Iranian-born journalist and academic Saba Vasefi, to learn more. Good morning, Saba.
Good morning. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been, I think, incredibly moving for all of us in other parts of the world to see the incredible courage of the women and girls who are taking to the streets and protesting in ways that I imagine, as someone who grew up in Iran, must be incredibly. Is it moving? Does it inspire you? What's your reaction when you see these women and girls?
In some part of me is kind of internally bleeding, and it is triggering for me, but it can motivate me to just keep going and pushing the government to more restriction, delegitimize Islamic Republic of Iran as a legitimate regime and consider them as a terrorist group, put them in the list of terrorist organization rather than considering them as a legitimate regime.
So we've seen these demonstrations, and we know that the instigating moment was the very sad and devastating loss of Mahsa Amini. But can you give us some insight of how this movement has spread across Iran? Because it feels like it's just taken on this life and energy.
I think it has been developed gradually through the 4 stages. The first stage, morning people came to the street to express their anger over Mahsa Amini's murder by the regime. In the second stage, the university students joined them, and then violent suppression of university students evoked high school students to participate in the revolt. Then again, their crackdown ended up with primary school students becoming the youngest warriors. In each step, a diverse group of marginalized people who have been ostracized by the regime for diverse reasons joined the revolution. Thus, we see this movement has been shaped as a revolution for finding the intersectional approach by the support of different movements in Iran that were seeking, for example, diverse movement like students movement, teachers movement, women movement, labor movement, ethnic movement. All these groups who have been marginalized and ostracized by the regime, they find the roots of their marginalization in the atrocious regime, which is Islamic Republic.
And what risks are the protesters, especially the women and girls, what are they taking at the moment? What's at stake for them?
I think it is not not only women, girls. Life is a great asset for everyone. And all the people who are joining to the protest, they are depicting the Islamic regime as a murderous regime with their flesh and blood. You know how many people have been killed. And but the issue is significant is young generation, boy or girls. Many of them record a video of themselves before participating in the revolution to leave a message from themselves to the world that they are aware of their resistance. They are consciously acting for their freedom. This is very unique, I think.
It's incredible to watch. The footage is absolutely breathtaking because it feels as though, you know, huge amounts of people are taking to the streets and women are removing their hijab and cutting their hair. And to me, watching that, I feel like it's a courage that I don't know that I would necessarily have. Is it now a revolution in Iran?
I think what I can see, yes, definitely. And as you can see in the footages, people chanting, this is not the protest, this is a revolution. And I can see all the characteristic of a revolution in this chain of protests, as I said, because of its intersectional approach that could attract diverse group of people from diverse ages, from diverse form of marginality. When they attracted and because they joined to this protest, I think this is a revolution, yes. And from another way, it is very optimistic and promising, because while government still shooting and killing people, and you can see people don't leave the street, it's very promising that it is the end line, final line for the regime.
The world's finally taking notice now of the human rights violations in Iran, but it must feel like it's been such a long time coming for you. Is it sort of frustrating as well that it's had to come to this for people to finally take note?
Yes, this happened, for several times. Government is keep killing over 43 years since the Islamic regime seized the power. They are keep killing the dissident oppositions. And they are convincing the West and international community that this is an internal issue, that we don't need interference of the West. But I think, for example, it is like your exposure to family violence and everyone advise you it is a family issue. You should solve it internally. I don't agree with this kind of idea. If the West choose to capitulate to this idea, I think they are not committing to human rights as a universal issues. When we experience any form of violence, we should scream it to get support before our annihilation. And a revolution that destroys a strong foundation of an authoritarian government takes consistent work and diverse voices, diverse support as a global issues, not a local issues. And victory is a process, not an event. To get to the stage of victory, definitely we need so many multi-layered support, and the Western media can help by amplifying diverse voices of marginalized Iranian community who have been ostracized by the regime to get to know the roots of their atrocity and exclusive system. But I think the way that Australia addressed the issue of modern terrorism is disappointing. Australia has ignored the danger of the Islamic Republic for a long time and has not acted sufficiently to address modern terrorism. For example, Iran took a hostage from Australia, Dr. Kylie Gilbert Moore, who traveled to Iran. Iranian government arrested her, and Australia submitted to the demand of terrorist regime by swapping one of their citizens with the regime 3 terrorists. And in this way, and so far, Australia did not put, Islamic Republic in the list of terrorist organizations like the US did. In this way, I think Australia is ignoring, they are not addressing the issue of modern terrorism. Someone to hostage from your country, you definitely should cut out all of the relationship with that, the system that they are empowering themselves, maintaining their power by hostage taking. Another evidence to back up my claim is, for example, Al-Qaeda as a terrorist group, second highest leader, was living in Iran, or Belgium court sentenced an Iranian diplomat to 20-year prison for plotting a bomb in the opposition gathering in France. Another evidence is a Swedish court sentenced Iranian ex-official, Hamid Nouri, to life in prison for his leading role in the mass execution of political prisoners in 1988. So, and another evidence is Islamic Republic of Iran is a friend of violent Bashar Assad regime and Putin regime. There are massive evidences to prove Islamic Republic is a dangerous not only for Iranian but to the world. And the diplomats in Australia are a grave potential danger against national security. But
So
even the Australian Prime Minister is still silent, and they are not acting.
So yes, we understand that that you would like the Australian government to do more, and certainly from our perspective, we're a media startup, and for us, we're here to support the women and girls of Iran. And I suppose, you fled Iran in 2010. And Saba, I'm assuming that you still have family and friends there. Are you in contact with them, and can you give us a sense of what they're experiencing?
Yes, my family, my parents are still in Iran, and for my activity in Australia, and as you can see on social media, I'm under kind of attack and getting backlash whenever I'm talking against the regime. And yes, my family are still have been harassed by the regime, but it doesn't stop me, because this is what the regime wants, to silence us, to terrify us, to intimidate us. And I think now I am equipped enough by living and growing up under that regime and living for almost, I think, 12 years in the exile, and I'm experienced to how to deal with that and still hold my inner power and protect my inner power to keep going.
Are the women and girls, as they are taking to the streets in this woman life freedom movement, are they aware that the rest of the world is watching and supporting them?
Yes, this is one of the reasons that they are, this new generation, they are very different to my generation, because they are connected to alternative space of, international network and cyberspace. They are watching. That's why I think Western media can energize the revolt by amplifying more voices. For example, when you are exposing to some form of violence, would you like to remain in the corner of your home isolated, or you would prefer you have so many support outside of your home, outside of the place that you have been violated? Definitely media who has more freedom to tell the story can energize the revolt.
Well, that's what we're here to do. Thank you so much, Saba, for giving us that perspective today of Iran. And yes, we are very much big supporters of the Woman Life Freedom Movement here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Lovely to see you today.
You too.
Thank you.
Well, the Melbourne Fringe is on, and if you're about town, you have to see a show that, well, it caught our eye, of course, because it's called Broad. So it makes sense that it caught our eye, but also the other reason is that it is a fabulous show by she's one of the greatest and the most energetic performers you could see, Geraldine Quinn. We're calling her a rock cabaret artist. She joins us now. How does that sit with you? Is that what you describe yourself, Geraldine, a rock cabaret artist?
Yeah, it is. It is. Give me thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
No, yeah, but because I can. The thing is, so cabaret, when I started, I'm like a lot of cabaret artists. It's not something I aspired to. It's something I ended up doing. So when I It's true. So when I started, I kind of wanted to be a serious musician initially. I think you'll find that's a very popular legacy in amongst Australian musical comedians, not least of all Jude Pearl, Tim Minchin, and Casey Bonetto, and Eddie Perfect, and probably Gillian Crossgriff, and Michelle Bracey, basically all of us. So, and when I started in 2005, it was kind of still a dirty word, cabaret. It's not as cool as it is now. So I liked to differentiate that I was more of a guitar-based person, and I did write in a rock pop style. However, this show is me and an accompanist on keyboard.
So pretty much cabaret. Yep. Yeah.
But I think I'm old enough now to be able to and I know enough about cabaret to be able to lovingly take the mickey out of it.
But it's awesome. Who doesn't love cabaret? Like, it's so uplifting.
Oh, you'd be surprised. There's a lot of people, I think, I sort of talk about this a bit in the show, because I have found that you sort of fall in between musicians who don't think you're taking your art seriously and stand-ups who think you have a 6-string clap machine. So it's
Hey, I
really
apologise
weird.
for saying that.
It was actually Hannah Gadsby, but that's fine. I took it with the love with which it was intended, but it was still okay.
Now, Broad's been, you debuted it this year, at the start of this year, and it's been very well received. You had a crusher at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. You're at Melbourne Fringe now. You took it to Edinburgh. Am I correct?
And that's it's the first time I've done Edinburgh since 2010.
Wow.
So considering I didn't really start, I hadn't really started my whatever this career is until I was 30. So I'm 47 doing Edinburgh Fringe. That was that I learnt some things. I don't know if I can ever stay on the 3rd floor again. But I was also really grateful that I wasn't the drinker that I was in my 30s, because I wouldn't have survived.
Do you ever do that thing, when you've had a big absence of something and you go back and you're like, oh, wow, last time I was here was 12 years ago. And then just because of that, you end up comparing yourself to who you were 12 years ago and the time that has passed. And, do you kind of look at who you were then and who you are now, and have you grown? Are you different? Are you the same? How do you compare?
Yeah, no, you've hit the nail on the head, because again, I hadn't written a show for 4 years when I wrote Broad, because I had it wasn't just a pandemic thing, I had other things that were very serious that happened. And so I was working with Circus Oz for 2 years, so I hadn't written an original show. So I was writing as a completely different person from everything that I'd been through. I felt like the way that I wrote songs was different. And I started out going, I just want to write a really silly show that's really fun to do. And I accidentally made a point while I was writing it. And it seemed to be a point that resonated with people. And the thing about it is, when I did go to Edinburgh, I wasn't only a different person writing it, I was a different person touring. My perspective was so shifted from, I realised how much I didn't know when I just jumped into festivals. I've done like 30-something festivals. I've done 17 or 18 years of comedy festival, and I just got a nomination for Most Outstanding Show.
Amazing.
I thought you were about to say you just got Best Newcomer. It's like overnight sensation of 17 years.
Well, it's kind of, the show's kind of about sticking around and not quitting no matter what kind of happens. It's fun, guys, don't worry. It's not, I'm not going to bring you down. But that's really the core of it, because I did feel like there isn't anything else I'm this good at. And I think it's easy to kind of go, well, what's the point? I'll just stop and do whatever. And sometimes you just go, I think this is a vocation, not just a hobby. And you keep going and you keep improving and you keep learning new skills. in my case, wig styling, and I think I'm going to have to learn how to sew because there's no drag stitches available anymore. But I'm up for it. And it became a real good reflection of the person I think I am. I think I was insufferable 20 years ago, frankly.
That's quite a...
And I apologise. I'd like to formally apologise here on Broad Radio for how insufferable I think I was in my 20s and 30s.
I didn't know you then,
And probably
Quinny,
teens.
but on
Yeah,
behalf of the broader
good.
community, I accept that apology.
Thanks, Kirsty.
I mean, it's the benefit of reaching what effectively is our middle age. I'm 50 now, Geraldine, so I know that you kind of reflect on who you were in your 30s when you... For me, I was just deeply unhappy. And so I perhaps behaved in ways that reflected that.
Yeah, I think I was really, everything was a catastrophe and it was all me. Look, it still is a little bit, but I've got a bit more perspective of, I've now seen how wrong things can actually go. And I think that's, that's kind of the gift of I don't want to say the gift of trauma, but it kind of sometimes can give you that, okay, I understand what can happen in the world. There's a lot I haven't got control over. Let's enjoy the stuff I have got control over. And for me, that's the work that I produce, the people that I've got around me that I think are wonderful, great colleagues, fantastic musicians and friends. And, oh, God, what have I turned into? I'm losing my edge, Joe.
No, it's lovely. You're letting us in. That's nice, Geraldine.
Letting you into my filthy study on my phone.
So the show Broad is a homage to Broads on the stage, and I love the word broad, hence Broad Radio. Like, I just think there's something very empowering. Even though I had a woman who's sort of I guess she was in her 70s, I'm going to guess. That generation, some of them don't love the word broad because they think it's a little bit insulting. I don't know. But why broad for you?
Well, again, it did start off with me thinking about how I'm turning into the kind of icon that hopefully an icon, but like the Agnes Mooreheads, the Rhonda Birchmores, the Eutha Joyce, those kinds of women who were really, really bold and really brassy and really Carol Burnett, that sort of thing. People who were really magnificent and often ended up in comedy and became these inspirations for a lot of people who feel a bit out of place. And when you do get older as a woman, as I'm 47 and a half, so I'm in a similar age bracket to you, Joe. So you do feel like, there's just constantly getting bashed over the head with, not only are you not the new thing, you're a woman of this age, an AFAB cisgender woman of this age. And I wanted to explore what it was like going, well, hey, cabaret's the perfect format for exactly this trope of womanhood. So let's just do that from my perspective and go, do you know what? I'm just going to be absolutely proud of all of the mess and noise of me. And that's kind of how the show started.
Are you on a roll now? Like, you hadn't written a show for 4 years, you hadn't been to Edinburgh since 2010. What's next? What are you doing?
Well, I'm currently downloading some footage from Edinburgh so that I can edit it together myself and try to get someone to buy the show because it's expensive hiring an accompanist. No, it's still me. I'm still independent. I do have some big concepts, but I think they need some more time. And I'm starting to kind of gather some people around me really early and go, I know when I need a hand with this. That's the fun thing about this show was that I hate rewriting because I feel like somehow I'm going to destroy the thing. And this one had so many reworks. I went to people like Ash Flanders, who I love the writing of, and said, hey, I know there's something missing in this structure. I need a hand to make it better. So I was more open to people coming in and kind of giving me some input to then let me take it away and get it better and better. And that's a different frame of mind to how I think I was when I started. To go back, draft it again, fix that joke, tighten that up, and just keep going and going and going and making it as good as it can be.
And so I think certainly I'm not in any way talented as you are, Geraldine, but I am someone who loves a show tune and I love music, and I grew up, inspired by those sorts of women. Who inspired you?
In terms of which
just
element
performance,
of my career?
like this. You've now stepped into this cabaret role and do it so incredibly well, and you've got this show that's a homage to these sorts of broads. Are there women who you watch perform, or women who maybe you've worked with who have really kind of shown you the way?
A lot of them are the ones I mentioned in the show. Like I do think Agnes Moorehead was extraordinary, and I don't think she's really recognised as much today, unless you're well in kind of queer circles perhaps. But Eutha Joyce is someone no one knows her name, and you go, it's Mildred from George and Mildred, and she was a really extraordinary character actor as well. But Rhonda Birchmore, who I talk about in the show, who's just been doing her job for decades and decades, 40 years, and is extraordinary and is continually interested in other performers and younger performers and all genres. And I think that that's the kind of artist I would hope to be, is that I'm continue to be really interested in what people are doing no matter where they are in their careers. And that's the fun thing about Fringe. You get to see some bonkers stuff, and I like those weirdos who do stuff that maybe doesn't traditionally, quote unquote, sell, because that's what keeps our genre, especially fringy genres like cabaret, really vibrant and essential.
Yeah. Well, if you are in Melbourne, head along to see Geraldine in Broad this week in Melbourne Fringe. You can go to melbournefringe.com.au for the tickets. Are you taking it around the country?
Oh, I'm going to WA. I'm going to Perth at the start of November. And I'm going to Portland with a different show a little bit later in November. But yeah, we'll see about next year. I'm sending emails. Sending some emails.
It's a start.
I'm available.
Geraldine, thank you so much for joining us, and all the best. I love the whole thing. Everything you do is just so glorious. You're larger than life.
Oh, that's
but also
very sweet. I admire
beautiful.
you both a lot, so that's very nice to hear.
All the best with your shows this weekend.
You're the best.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Geraldine.
Australians know that sun exposure can cause skin cancer, but dermatologists also know that it can cause wrinkles, pigmentation and age spots. That's why you need sunscreen every day. Ask your Chemist Warehouse pharmacist which sunscreen is right for your skin.
Broad Radio. Talking inspo we love, info we need, and sharing more of us. Watch and listen live every Tuesday 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time at broadradio.com.au, or find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and LinkedIn at Broad Radio Oz. Talk to us live. Call on 1300 8 Broad. Catch up on demand anytime, anywhere, every time, everywhere. On the train, we'll be here. 2 a.m. existential crisis? We've got you covered. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Now, Kirsty, because I do stalk you on Twitter.
I love that.
Well, the most recent photo I saw of your beautiful dog, Joan, who's the cutest thing in the world, came with a caption, which the caption was, Joan is exhausted after shitting in our friend's lounge room, dining room.
Yeah. It was last night. We popped around to a friend's place, and he was going to help my partner with her bike. So they were doing a good deed for us at about 8 p.m. Very kind. And Joan loves them, loves their home. Ran straight in, ran down to their bedroom, had just had a wee outside as well. Treated herself to a wee, and our mate went down and started cleaning it. And while she was cleaning it, Joan ran back around to their dining room and had a poo in. And I was like, it's not the first time she's done this in their home, but particularly because it was 8 o'clock and they'd gone out on a limb to help us with this bike. And I was mortified. And they're going, no, don't worry about it. It's all good. She's just excited. But, I gave her a stern talking to.
Imagine how mortifying it is when you visit someone and essentially part of your family just takes a dump in the dining room.
And I feel like it was the haste with which she did it as well, and like running to the end of the house and then backtracking. She's like, right, they're down there cleaning that up now. So now, now I'll do the poo.
Now's my chance. And she's just come in from outside. That's the thing. Like she's got the whole of the great outdoors.
Oh, it was really embarrassing. Like I said, she's only a year and a half old, so she, this is definitely not the first accident that she's had, but the whole nature of it, like welcoming us into their home, like getting on later at night to help with this bike, and then, our dog's coming as well, and she's going to defecate and wee all over the house. We hope that's okay.
Yeah, my my mum's dog once stayed with us because she was, I don't know, overseas or whatever, and he took a shit on the dining room table.
On the table?
Like, he managed somehow to jump up. He was a small dog, similar to Joan, and literally managed to jump up on the table and do a little poo there.
Oh,
and I remember just going, that takes some real guts to take that up.
Well, that's a statement as well, isn't it? Like, he's got a political message that he's sending.
Yeah, he's very unhappy about something that's going on there. See, the thing is, you bring this up, and it felt like I had to share with you because, when you have animals, you're dealing with all of the mess that comes with it, right?
Yes.
And my dear cat Maggie has recently had a bit of an issue where she had to wear a nappy, right? So she's elderly.
Okay.
She's 19 next week.
Wow.
I know. And people always imagine when you imagine a 19-year-old cat, you kind of imagine them looking a little bit like they're decaying in front of you. But
sure.
She's in pretty good nick, right?
Yeah,
but she did have this very unfortunate, I don't know, she's completely fine now. We thought it was going to take her out, but she had this problem where she had constant diarrhea and we had to put her in a nappy, right? And I felt really bad about using disposable nappies, so I ordered online a reusable, you can wash it.
Yeah, amazing.
Kind of nappy, right?
Great. I love that they're available for pets as well.
Well, it was. There's something available for everyone. It seems.
That's right. I think it's great.
Anyway, the brand was called Kitty Knickers, right?
Wonderful.
Kitty Knickers, and I chose. They are all different sort of, patterns and stuff, and I chose one that was sort of like, and obviously we are video live and we are also a podcast. So I'm showing you this, but I'll describe it. They are, they're like leopard print.
Yeah,
right?
They're leopard print. They're amazing.
They're very, very leopard printy, and they came in the mail, and it had Kitty Knickers on the actual envelope, and my husband did not know that I had bought these, and he thought I bought something sexy. Right? He was like, ooh, Kitty Knickers, right? And he opened them, and he discovered what is effectively a pair of knickers, but they are a bit thicker because they are absorbent. And there's a hole for the tail at the back, right?
They're actually so cool. I love that someone's made these.
So my husband's like, oh, you got some sexy undies, but what's the hole for? And I was like, honey, don't get any ideas. I'm too old for that shit. And also, they don't fit me because they're the size of a cat. But there you go, Kitty Knickers.
They're incredible. Yeah, give them a Google if you're listening to this. They're actually amazing.
But then they sit around you poor little puss who she had to wear them for a little while.
The main thing, like the whole time that you've been talking about this, the only thing that I can think of is that would never fly with my cat.
Oh, your cat.
We would
Fergie.
we would be in a pool of blood if we ever tried to put anything on her. If we try to brush her, we're in a pool of blood, let alone pinning her down and putting some kitty knickers on her.
Well, you've been a pool of blood and diarrhea at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I'm thinking. I hope that Fergie maintains her robust intestines because there's little we're going to be able to do to help her.
The good thing is she's fully recovered, Maggie, and she turns 19 next week.
That's incredible, and I love that she's 19.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning how Maggie looks like she's in great shape, and it's the same as Fergie. People think Fergie's really young, but she's actually 14.
Yeah, amazing.
So she's creeping up as well, and she does. She looks like a breath of fresh air with a terrible personality.
She's cranky as shit.
She's awful,
but she's lived a life.
Yeah, that's right. She doesn't have to put on the pleasantries anymore.
Yeah, whereas Maggie's not cranky. She's just given up on. Like, she's just like, she's just happy to walk from the food to the balcony to the bed to the food to the balcony to the bed.
Beautiful. I look forward to that. I look forward to those days too.
In your nappy?
Yeah. Well, if they're leopard print, absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Oh, where would we be without our beautiful furry babies? Okay, so before we wrap up today, I wanted to share some highlights from our latest podcast with Maurice Blackburn Lawyers. The podcast is called Lay Down the Law. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts. And the recent episode is called Making Superannuation Fair. And it features Maurice Blackburn Lawyers CEO Jacob Varghese and Principal Lawyer Hayriye Uluca. So the whole conversation is about how to make superannuation fair for women, because women on average retire with between 25 and 42% less superannuation than men.
Wow.
I know, it's really quite sobering, and it's something that the whole industry, it's a result of gender inequality more broadly, but it's also a result of our life stages. So it's about taking time out for caring responsibilities. If you were never married, or if you ended up divorced, you don't have the benefit of that second income and the superannuation that comes from that. Often it's because women more disproportionately represent the casual workforce. And also it's inconsistent work. It's also often a result of family violence, that women just don't have any kind of nest egg when they retire. It's very, very concerning.
It is. Yeah, I didn't realise the statistics were like that.
Well, there's lots to be done, and the first is actually with regard to paid parental leave. And in this first clip that we're just going to share with you, this little highlight, Hayriye begins by explaining the current situation for superannuation on parental leave. And did you know, the news is that there actually is no superannuation for parental leave. Check it out.
But the current situation is that if a woman becomes pregnant or a man decides to take primary carers leave, depending on their employment arrangement, they might have an entitlement to paid parental leave, but not everybody will have that entitlement. From a government perspective, there is an entitlement to 12 weeks of paid parental leave if the person has been employed with that employer for 12 months. But there certainly isn't any legislated requirement for super contributions on top of that paid leave, and certainly there's no obligation for an employer to pay during a period of unpaid leave.
So help me understand though, because do we get paid super when we take other leave?
We do. We get paid super on annual leave, on personal leave like sick days, on long service leave, all of these other types of leave. We get super. It's just a bizarre anomaly that we don't get super for paid parental leave.
But why would that be? Why would they make the excuse for that particular leave?
Who knows why the excuse was there in the first place? I think what we can say is it's ridiculous that it still pertains. So I think we just need to fix that. That's only a small part, though. I mean, that's an obvious thing that needs to be fixed. We have a paid parental leave scheme. It was introduced, I don't know, a decade or so ago. It seems very obvious that there should be super on that. That's only just the tip of the iceberg, though, because there's also unpaid parental leave that a lot of people will take. The paid parental scheme is, in most cases, not enough to cover people for the period they think is appropriate to take after they've had a baby. And so we need to be talking about the paid parental leave. That's just straightforward. We just need to get on with it. Then the broader conversation is about unpaid parental leave, I think.
Yeah, so where do we stand with that?
At the moment, with unpaid parental leave, as with all unpaid leave, there's no super. At Maurice Blackburn, we've taken the position that we don't want our employees to suffer that gap. And we want our employees to feel supported by the firm while they're taking unpaid parental leave, and we want them to come back to the firm when they're finished. And so we've committed to paying your superannuation throughout that whole period, even when you're not earning income. And that's just a small step we can take to reduce the the super gap.
So when it comes to unpaid parental leave then, what kinds of action can take place to change that? Is it about lobbying governments and some kind of legislation, or how, I can understand that a small business might say, well, this is too onerous for me.
I think it's about really agitating for change and highlighting the important social and economic contributions that people doing unpaid work make. There's lots of evidence that supports the contributions that women in particular make to society when they do unpaid work. And I think as a society we need to do a better job at recognising that, so that we can ensure that when women do arrive at retirement age, they're not disadvantaged because of those decisions in their life. A lot of the time, are imposed upon them. It makes financial sense for them not to return to work, or as a family, perhaps they made the decision not to do that immediately or to take an extended break after having children. So I think that there's a lot to be said in terms of the conversation that we have about the value that women in particular make in the context of the unpaid caring work that they do.
So did you know there are 2 million unpaid carers in Australia?
No.
And that saves our economy $78 billion.
That is wild.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
But
that is such a huge number.
But there's no support as they reach, their senior years and retirement years. There's absolutely no support for them. So that means that they basically have saved our economy all that money. They've supported someone in their life, and now they get to spend their later years in poverty.
Yeah, just completely undervalued, overlooked, the contribution that makes to society as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And left really vulnerable, which is really alarming. So, and again, disproportionately large members of that sort of section of the community are women. The other part of this conversation, Kirsty, and I'm embarrassed to say this, but I don't know much about my super, right?
Sure. You say you're embarrassed about that, but I think good on you for admitting it, because I think there are a huge number of people in that camp as well.
Absolutely. I didn't sort of realise how much that there are insurances in the back end of our super that are really important, particularly as sort of a support if things go wrong. It's like a total and permanent disability and a death insurance. I didn't know that was a part of your super, but of course, as always, this too disadvantages women. And I did make the point to Hayriye that even though I am a grown adult, largely,
for all intents and purposes,
I don't really know much about the insurance included in my super. And in fact, I think a lot of people don't know much about it. And she said this.
Yeah, really good point, Jo. So a lot of people don't realise that automatically when you become a member of a super fund and your employer makes contributions on your behalf, you automatically get insurance cover for total and permanent disability and death, and that death benefit can be accessed on the grounds of terminal illness. So it's a really important safety net. You don't have to apply for that cover. It gets funded out of your super account, so you don't necessarily feel it in your pay every fortnight, and you don't have to privately fund it. So it's a fantastic automatic way of providing you insurance where you otherwise probably wouldn't be prompted to go out and purchase that cover for yourself. Now, we've been talking a lot about the decisions that women tend to make and the caring responsibilities that women tend to take on, and historically that has been the case, and women, and that hasn't really changed a great deal. And we're making changes, but it'll be a long time before we see those responsibilities spread equally. And so what we have seen is that women tend to take up more casual and flexible work, because often it's the work that's most flexible to accommodate those caring responsibilities. And so when people are taking on that kind of insecure employment, in addition to the disadvantages that they already face because of that insecure work, what we have discovered is that with some super funds, in particular retail super funds, they will treat members that are casually employed differently to members that were working on a permanent basis. And the definition of disability, of total and permanent disability that they must satisfy, is so narrow and so difficult that it renders their insurance practically useless to them. we've likened some of these insurance policies to junk because effectively they don't cover people in their time of need. And the reason they don't is because of the casual employment status. And so if women are making up the vast majority of the casualised workforce, then it's women that will be disproportionately impacted by those really harsh and restrictive definitions. The other problem that we're finding is that if you've had a break in your employment and you're doing unpaid work, perhaps, and I could give you an example of a client that we represent who had an acrimonious and really violent relationship that broke down. She was unable to work for a period of time and moved around from place to place and had to take out an intervention order against her ex-husband. And she became a primary carer for her children in that time. She was a working professional her whole life, and she had every intention of returning to work. And in that intervening period, when she was already going through so much, she suffers from a really significant heart attack that leaves her with cognitive impairment and all sorts of other physical ailments, and it renders her unable to return to work. Now, when she makes a claim on her policy, she finds that because she wasn't in regular remunerative work in the lead up to making the claim, the definition she must satisfy is a home duties definition, which again is extremely restrictive and harsh. And because she could, with struggle, but she could perform some of the duties of home duties, the insurer denied her claim and she missed out on the benefit. Now, you think to yourself in that moment, had she been a man, had she not experienced the things that she had to experience, has she not then been the primary carer for her children, which was the only thing she could really focus on at that time, then at the time that this unexpected health condition arose, she wouldn't have been so disadvantaged. And so there's all these hidden provisions, hidden terms and conditions in policies that whilst they don't state, if you're a woman, this will apply to you, it does, because of the sort of unconscious bias, if you like, in the way that some of these policies have been drafted, it doesn't give regard to the important contribution that unpaid work makes to our society. And it assumes that if you're not in regular paid work, that you should be getting more inferior coverage than a person that's maintaining regular paid work.
The thing that amazes me about that conversation was discovering that if you are a casual worker, somehow your benefit is lesser than if you were, say, a full-time worker. And what I don't understand is casual workers are the most vulnerable in our community. They're the ones that actually need the cover because they haven't had the income to be able to put away a nest egg.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It's just, everything's just set up to favour the people that have a bit more stability in their lives in general. So it's, very disappointing.
The structures out there that are just, behind the scenes, and just bit by bit we're chipping away at those structures and going, this isn't fair, this is not just. But there's a long way to go. Kirsty, thanks for joining us on the show today. I understand you've got a special coming up.
I do, yeah. I was very fortunate to shoot my stand-up comedy show this year, Silver Linings, as a special for Paramount Plus. So it's coming out, I think, sometime in November. Don't have a solid date yet, but very exciting to have a full show out there.
Yeah. What's it like seeing yourself and knowing that it's going to be out there? What would Shush Pierre think? My goodness.
Well, luckily he's blocked. Because I don't want to hear what his views are on my 1 hour stand-up special. No. It's exciting though. It's super exciting. Yeah, I had to watch the edits recently. And it was harrowing. I kept pushing back watching. I just didn't want to watch 1 hour of me. Like, I'm used to watching like 5-minute clips here and there, but 1 hour was daunting. But I had a look at it, and really surprisingly, I really loved it. So I'm actually excited now about it being out there in the ether.
Yeah, well, we saw it. We loved it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's a great show. I'm thrilled that it's going to be out there. Check it out when it arrives, Paramount Plus for that. Thank you so much to everybody who joined us today, particularly Michelle, who saw the photo of Maggie, my cat, in a nappy and said, look at her face, I will kill you at the first opportunity, human, which is exactly what I'm sure Maggie was thinking, but she's 19 and she hasn't got the energy anymore, so we feel pretty safe. Michelle has also shared yet another glaring example of the patriarchal attitudes that still prevail in business and society. It's 2022, for fuck's sake. Thanks, Michelle. We love a bit of sweary to finish off the show. We'll be back with Broad Radio next week. Kirsty, great to see you. We'll see you again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone.